Rambam. We continue the laws of Tain bin Nitan. These are the laws of a plaintiff and a defendant. The various laws. We're learning now, we learned and we continue to learn the idea of being muhzak. Muhzak means that you have established a claim of ownership because you've lived on the land, let's say, for 3 years. Talking about in a time or in a situation where there isn't a proof of ownership of land. It doesn't have to be land necessarily, but here we're speaking in that manner, right? 11 people. Q. Right. So the fact that you lived on the land for 3 years and let's say or in the field, let's say in a field, you live there or you plowed and sowed and you made produce there for 3 years, or it depends what, it can be 3 seasons, not necessarily 3 years. It depends. There are details in that we learned. That gives you a claim of ownership. Right. In other words, if you have no document to prove that it's your land and no one else has a document to prove it's their land now, or maybe someone else doesn't have a document, it was their land. But this guy says, well, you sold it to me. I've been living here for 3 years. And he has witnesses that he's been living there for 3 years, tilling the soil or whatever, if it's a field that is meant to make produce, and he has produce from it. And for 3 years, you said nothing, and you knew. If you were, across the ocean and you were away for 3 years and you didn't know, so that's a different thing. But let's say you knew, so you had a time to make your claim. You didn't make your claim. You didn't become a plaintiff, right? Then you lost your right. Now the question is, those 3 years, is that everybody? So the following individuals are not given the privilege to establishing a claim of ownership, even though they benefited from the property for 3 years. Who? A craftsman, a sharecropper, a guardian, partners, a husband with regard to the property belonging to his wife, a wife with regard to property belonging to her husband, a son with regard to property belonging to his father, and a father with regard to property belonging to his son. What's the rationale? Why not? If we say a regular person, why not them? Because in these instances, the owners will not be irritated if the other uses the property. Right? Therefore, the fact that they benefit does not serve as a proof of ownership, even though the owner did not protest. That's the key over here, is that if someone was on my land for 3 years and I didn't protest about it, right? Whether I went to witnesses and told them, hey, there's a guy on my land. I don't have the time now to go to court to bring this to court because I'm dealing with whatever I'm dealing in my life, but I'm protesting it, right? By 2 witnesses. I'm telling you, because when it comes to court, I want you to, that I've made a protest, right? Or you went to court and you protested it, right? Then you become the plaintiff in court. But that's because it irritates you that someone's on your land. But if it's your child that's on the land, it's your son, right? Or the husband, it's property that belongs to the wife, but her husband is on it. You're not irritated by that. You're happy that they're using the land and making produce and having some benefit from it. You're okay. So the fact that you didn't protest isn't a proof that the land doesn't belong to you. That's the point. Okay. Right. Now, of course, there has to be proof that it belongs. There's two things here. There's the person 3 years on the land, making produce on the land, and then there is the person who has some kind of proof, whether it's witnesses, whether it's a documentation, that they at least at one point owned the land. Just because you have a documentation or witnesses come and said, yeah, I remember 10 years ago, I came to visit him here, and he, this was his land. Good, that was 10 years ago, but maybe he sold it. So it's not a proof. it's not a proof that you own it today if someone else is on that property for 3 years, tilling the soil and making and benefiting from it.
What if the claim was made within the past 3 years?
Huh? If it's less than 3 years, then it's not a proof, then that's not a claim of ownership. Remember, we have to have competing, we have something competing over here. We have the guy who's the plaintiff who's saying, it's my land, here's my documentation. Well, he's saying, yeah, you sold it to me. I just don't have it. I don't have the document, but what I do, because if he had a document of sale, so then obviously that, then it doesn't matter that he once had a document of ownership, right? He doesn't have that. But what he does have is 3 years tilling the soil, having benefit from the land. That's a claim. By Torah, that's called a claim. That counters the other claim in this instance, right? Now, these people don't counter it. Why? Because I wouldn't protest. Because the whole point is, Torah says that you got 3 years to make the protest. Within 3 years, it's okay. It's still your land. After 3 years, you've lost the right. So in this instance over here, in these cases we gave, right, the property should be returned to the owner, provided they bring proof that the land was known to belong to them, right? Whether witnesses, right? Or he had a documentation. And they take a Shavuos Hesed, which is a rabbinic oath, that they did not sell or give away the land, as we've explained. Is that clear? Good. Halacha number 2. Second. Similarly, the exarchs of that period, who they were like self-proclaimed leaders in many instances. So like they were, they had power, right? Not in a good way. A robber, also not good, right? And a non-Jew cannot establish a claim of ownership because of the benefit from property. The rationale is that they are men of force. Now, not every non-Jew is a man of force, but that's the category that they're put in. Back in the day, definitely was the case. Remember, we're talking about an instance where there is no other kind of proof. Okay. Similarly, okay, we said, yeah. Right. Okay. Similarly, a deaf mute, mentally or emotionally unstable person, and a minor cannot establish a claim of ownership through benefiting from a property. The rationale is that they do not have a claim on which a property could be awarded to them. Instead, the property should be returned to its owners. Conversely, if a person manifests ownership over the property for 3 years, the fact that he benefited from the property is not considered proof of ownership. What? I didn't catch that. הקרקע בידם אלא תפסותם ולכן המחזיק נכסיהם. Oh, okay, of the deaf mute. Okay. So a deaf mute and mentally and emotionally unstable person or a minor, they can't establish ownership, right? From benefiting from the property. Why? Because they don't have a claim on which property could be awarded to them. Because to be awarded, as we've explained in the past, I give you something. How does it become yours? Is because your mindfulness, either you've accepted it, right? And we make a transaction, right? You've accepted it. There has to be an awareness of the mind in order that it becomes yours. There has to be an active acquisition, and there has to be an awareness of the mind. The active acquisition is that the mind is aware that this is now mine, right? But if you don't have that, then how did it become yours? So they don't have that because, right? Therefore, their 3 years of working land doesn't make a claim because the 3 years is only the mental awareness that you have. They don't have that.
Has to understand that.
Right. Exactly. Conversely, it's the other way around, right? Let's say you took from something that belongs to the minor, right? The minor belongs to them because they inherited from their parents, right? The land belongs to him, and now there's a guy who is 3 years there. So that 3 years doesn't make it theirs. Why? We just said 3 years is a claim of ownership. Is because the only reason it's a claim is because the one who owns the land should have protested within the 3 years. They don't have the mind to do that. So therefore, that's why they didn't protest. So therefore, your 3 years doesn't make a claim.
Comes null and void as a result.
Yeah.
In other words, it's as though you took it from them with ulterior motives, clandestinely.
And I'm not certain what you mean by that. Let me explain it again, say it again to make sure, because I'm not certain that you're. What makes, if I work 3 years on your land, it's your land, right? What makes it, if I worked on it 3 years and benefited from it from 3 years, my land? What?
Well, I have the full understanding as it,
Because you didn't protest. Why would you protest?
because
Because it's your land and I'm on there benefiting from it. And well, the fact that you didn't right away is one thing, but after 3 years, you lost your rights to the land.
this is something that I could have done.
You should have protested, but why would you protest? Because you got a mind that understands that I am benefiting from your property illegally, right? But you didn't protest. You lost your right. Again, that's only if you you lost your right. But if it was a minor or someone who doesn't have a mind, they didn't lose their right because they didn't protest because they don't have the mind to do it. So therefore, the 3 years that you would have worked on the land as an adult doesn't make a claim. Because it's not because you merely worked there for 3 years on the land and had benefit from the land that makes it yours. It's because that the plaintiff didn't make the protest. But here the plaintiff is not capable of making the protest because they don't have a mind to do that. Is that clear?
And a chance.
Huh?
And if perhaps I remember Rambam given it eventually, during the 3 years, person who had the capacity to protest, something happened to him or her that they were no longer able to protest.
Yeah. Then this law they wouldn't have a claim. In other words, let's say they were in Africa for 3 years and didn't know, right? It's not like today. Today, that being in Africa for 3 years would not be sufficient because someone will text you and say, your neighbor is going to text you and tell you, hey, there's someone that is tilling the soil on your land and having the produce from it. You got 3 years to be notified about that. You'd be notified within 3 years, and then you shouldn't need to make a protest. Now, right? But today, because you would get a text from someone your neighbor would tell you that.
Right. But if the person fell ill and they,
But back in the day, if you were in Africa and you didn't, right? And back in the day, you were in Africa and you didn't come for 3 years, so then it's not a claim that you have because it wasn't 3 years of not being able to protest, that you didn't protest. I didn't know. I only know now. So your 3 years starts now.
right. But what I'm saying is, well, if the person is in the vicinity, but they fell ill, they're in a coma.
Same idea. What's the difference between a coma being in Africa and the same
Yeah,
idea? It's the same principle.
right.
Same principle, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, what is meant by the statement that they are not given the privilege of establishing a claim of ownership over property? Reuben benefited from the field originally belonging to Shimon for a sufficient number of years to establish a claim of ownership, right? he claims that he purchased the land, right? That's what Reuven says. I purchased it from Shimon, right? And he was there for at least 3 years, benefiting from the land. Shimon brought witnesses to testify that the property was known to belong to him. Okay, good. Similarly, he brought witnesses to testify that Reuven was known to be his partner. So 2 things, that it was his and that he was a partner with Reuven, or he was a sharecropper, or he was his guardian. For this reason, he claims that he did not protest, right? Because he's he's a sharecropper. What sharecropper mean? Sharecropper means it's my land, but I gave it to Menachem Hillel, right, in a deal that you till the soil, you plow, right, you sow, you reap, and you will get 30%, 50% of the profits, and I will get 50% of the profits. So am I happy that you till the soil? Absolutely, because that's our deal. So is that a claim now that you were there for 3 years that it's yours? No. And I brought proof, witnesses, that you're my sharecropper. So therefore, you don't have a claim for those 3 years, right? Or more. For this reason, he claims that he did not protest. The field is returned to Shimon, provided he takes a Shavuos Hesses, he had to take a rabbinic oath that he did not sell or give the property to Reuven. Similar laws apply with regard to others mentioned above. Different laws apply, however. Okay, that was one scenario. Now we give a different scenario. If Shimon does not bring proof of Reuven was his partner or sharecropper, but instead Reuven made the admission on its own initiative, saying, yes, he was my partner and he sold me the property. He's my partner, but I own the property. It was his once. It's mine now. And in the sale, we're still partners, meaning from the profits, but not from the ownership of the land. Right? Partner means in the business, doesn't have to be in the land, right? Since he benefited from the land for a number of years, long enough to establish a claim of ownership, and he could say that he was never my partner, his word is accepted like the word of other persons. What could he have said? He could have said that we were never partners, and therefore who would get the land? Reuven would get it, right? Again, what happened over here? Shimon brings proof. No, he brings proof that the land once belonged to him, right? But he doesn't bring proof that we're a partner or a sharecropper, right? But Reuven made the admission on his own, saying, yeah, he's my partner, but he sold me the property. He can still be a partner in a business, but not in the property, right? Now, what he could have said, we were never partners. And therefore, who would get the land? Reuven, because he's been on there for 3 years, right? Shimon wouldn't be able to get the land. So he didn't say that, though. He said that, yes, we are partners, but he sold me the land. Since he could have said and completely that we're not partners and it would be his land, so he's believed in what he said. And therefore, he establishes a claim. His claim, because he was there for 3 years, makes it his property. Got it? Okay, we're going to stop here. All right, thank you, folks.